And President Trump has definitely took a stand and said, I am going to elevate the faith office of the United States. He has allowed faith people from all across the country to be able to have a voice, and a lot of Latino faith leaders.
En el Día Nacional de la Oración, un pastor hispano nos revela cómo el presidente Trump abrió las puertas de la Casa Blanca a líderes latinos de fe.
Latinos filled the room to worship God and to be able to have a national briefing of what's going on in our country.
El pastor explica cómo la Oficina de Fe trabaja para enfocar las políticas que impactan a los latinos y cómo estas propuestas están guiando la agenda del presidente Trump.
Want to hear our ideas. They want to know what's going on in our communities, and they want to bring solutions. It's not just give me your problems.
Soy Pachi Valencia y los invito a ver esta entrevista en Desde el Capitolio. Buenas noches, soy Pachi Valencia y les doy la bienvenida a Desde el Capitolio, en directo desde Washington, D.C. Hoy la Casa Blanca celebró el Día Nacional de la Oración, una tradición que reúne a líderes religiosos de todo el país para orar por la nación y que este año marca un giro significativo en la relación entre el Poder Ejecutivo y las comunidades de fe. Durante el evento, el presidente Donald Trump firmó una orden ejecutiva para crear una comisión presidencial sobre libertad religiosa. Según la Casa Blanca, esta comisión tendrá la tarea de elaborar un informe exhaustivo sobre los principios fundamentales de la libertad religiosa en Estados Unidos, identificar amenazas actuales y también proponer estrategias para preservar estas protecciones. Aunque el evento tuvo lugar hoy por la mañana, ayer nosotros conversamos con uno de los invitados hispanos que ha sido parte de esta etapa de la Oficina de Fe en la Casa Blanca, el pastor Richard Vega, quien es un líder nacional religioso y fundador del ministerio At His Feet Ministries. Él ha tenido un rol activo en las sesiones informativas organizadas por esta Oficina de Fe. Y en esta entrevista que tuvimos, el pastor Vega nos comparte su visión sobre el papel de la fe en el liderazgo político actual y la creciente participación de hispanos cristianos en espacios de decisión nacional y lo que también espera escuchar del presidente Trump sobre la comunidad hispana. ¿Qué está cambiando dentro de esta relación entre el gobierno de Trump y los líderes de fe hispanos? ¿Y cómo se están preparando estos líderes para transmitir esa información a sus comunidades hispanas? Pues desde el Capitolio, esta fue nuestra conversación con el pastor Richard Vega. Pastor Richard Vega, National Faith Leader and founder of At His Feet Ministries. Thank you very much for joining us today here at Desde el Capitolio. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Pastor Vega, you were part of the first White House faith office briefing with Hispanic faith leaders in March, and now you're attending the National Day of Prayer at the White House again. So what does this moment signal about President Trump's relationship with Hispanic faith leaders and the community in general?
I think that it proves that he cares deeply, and he understands how important faith truly is. I think for President Trump, he's always been strong with his faith. I'd like to believe that. I don't know. But I know something changed when they shot at him and tried to kill him. He understood that moment in life, it could have really shifted. Clearly he would have died, and a lot of things could have happened to our country, but God spared his life. And I think that when it happens to anybody in life, that there's a transformation that takes place, and President Trump has definitely took a stand and said, I am going to elevate the faith office of the United States and let it represent exactly what it needs to represent. And he has allowed faith people from all across the country to be able to have a voice, and a lot of Latino faith leaders to have a voice.
What are they saying? What are the Hispanic Latinos are saying about this change? How are they feeling?
Excited. You know, there's a lot of rumors out there that are, Latinos don't have a voice in the White House or were nowhere around, and but they failed to look at the leadership, right? You have Marco Rubio, you have Jenny Korn, who, if you just look at the remarkable stories of what they've gone through to get where they're at, right? Those are leaders that are in the White House, that are working side by side President Trump, that are Latinos, that have a voice for us. And just like you said, we were one of the first briefings. Latinos filled the room to worship God and to be able to have a national briefing of what's going on in our country. That says a lot. Exactly what the president is looking to do, and how important it is for Latinos in faith to come together.
And Pastor, looking ahead for tomorrow's event, what can you tell our Hispanic audience about the National Day of Prayer? What goes on there, and why is it important for our community?
Well, it's my first time to be able to go to the White House and do it, but as far as the National Day of Prayer is very important, right? For us, it's important because a lot of different denominations and faith leaders come together to pray for our nation. It's so important for our nation to understand the importance of prayer, and President Trump clearly understands that with the Faith Department and allowing us to be able to come and pray for our nation. We've come a long ways. If you look a year ago, we had Trans-Visibility Day on Easter Sunday, where the White House was draped in rainbow colors all the way around, and trans people all over the yard, right? On Easter Sunday, the greatest celebration on earth for Christians. This is why we are who we are. This is the risen Savior of the world that we celebrate. This is why we're Christians, and you do that to us. To slap in our face is what it was. It was spitting at us. And you look at what President Trump just did, and for Holy Week and just proclamations, just speaking about Jesus and all these other things, and to bring in the National Day of Prayer for us to be able to come tomorrow to the White House, pray for this nation. And there'll be pastors and ministers all over our country going to city halls, and they're gathering at schools, and they're gathering everywhere to pray for our nation. We have come a long ways in just a year. In fact, we've come a long ways in just in the first 100 days. Yes. We've come a long way since January, and it's been remarkable to be able to witness and be on this journey.
And is there anything in particular that you are hoping to hear from President Trump or a White House official tomorrow regarding the role of faith in shaping the national policies?
I would like to hear some stuff from President Trump, but I'll tell you that Jenny Korn and Pastor Paula have done a great job delivering the message. They have not been shy one bit about the faith office and inviting pastors constantly and faith leaders constantly to the White House to get a briefing. If we look at Jenny Korn, she's from East LA, right? She grew up poor. She's her first generation Latina, right? Was able to work her way up and now being the director of the faith office at the White House, and allowing people like myself to come here multiple times. This is I've been to the White House several times now. People like me to be able to come and not just experience a briefing, but like Jenny and Paul would say, you have a voice and a seat at the table. They want to hear our ideas. They want to know what's going on in our communities, and they want to bring solutions. It's not just give me your problems. What can we do to shape the country to make it better? And that all catches onto the vision of making America great again.
And I think it also speaks a little bit about how Trump is actually managing the White House. I've heard from a lot of people that he is a president that actually listens when people talk to him, and that he actually asks people what they will do in certain situations. So it gives a feeling that this is a president that is actually talking to a lot of people and hearing several feedback.
Absolutely. So, and I'm hearing the same thing, right? And even the times that I've been able to meet President Trump and share briefly, you know, some things with him, and while in meeting him, and he listened, you know, and that's signs of a good leader. A good leader is going to want to know what's going on and not be a dictator. A lot of people in our country believe he's a dictator and he wants to be a king of the United States. If he wanted to do that, why is he allowing everything to happen at the White House and what it does and what it's doing? You know, I was just at the White House last week for a meeting, and it just so happens while I was there was another pastor's briefing going on that the time just ended up working out right. And so I ended up walking over there to go to the pastor's briefing. And just the level of pastors and people that are coming through the White House to get updates on what's going on nationally through the Faith Department is just remarkable. Because you have to understand, as pastors, when we're at home, we're consumed with our daily activities at the church. What does that mean? Most people don't realize. Well, if you have 50 members, 100 members, there's more than likely a lot of issues going on with those individuals that you have to counsel. You might have to go to the hospital. You might have to do a wedding, quinceañera. You might have to do a funeral. There's so many things going on, from people losing their jobs, running Bible studies, running discipleship classes that you have to worry about engaged, besides preaching, all outside of just preaching on a Sunday. So to be able to be offered to come here to get a national briefing on really what's going on, and so you can relay that to the people in your communities, is just amazing. And that's an example of his leadership, of him listening to his people, to his leadership staff, those that are in his circle, saying, President, we should do X, Y, Z. That's a great idea. Let's roll it out.
Pastor, and what's happening in these briefings, if you can tell us? Not too many Hispanics have access and the privilege to listen to these briefings, but what's happening behind the doors?
Yeah, so, well, I'll tell you, in my first briefing, I don't know, there was probably 100 Latinos in there. So there was several of us in there, and several have been back outside of me, and there'll be a lot there here tomorrow as well. So there is a lot of Latinos coming. Now, in the briefings, we hear from a lot of different departments. So it just depends who's going to come by and brief us. It could be DHS, it could be, some of the legal team, or what's getting updated on the executive orders that President Trump maybe had just recently signed. And then what I love about it is they open it up for questions. And you're able to ask the tough questions if that's what you want to ask, and be able to hear from top leadership and get the information that we need to be able to move forward.
¿Qué le está pareciendo la entrevista hasta ahora? No olvide dejarnos su me gusta debajo de este video para que YouTube pueda recomendar este contenido a más personas que quieran saber sobre este tipo de temas. También no se olvide de suscribirse a nuestra comunidad de Desde el Capitolio para seguir siempre informado sobre lo que sucede en Washington, D.C. Pero esto no es toda la conversación. Quédese y en 30 segundos regresamos con esta entrevista al pastor Richard Vega.
Un espectáculo realmente importante para cada uno de nosotros. Esto es lo que usted ha estado esperando. Véalo por lo menos una vez en su vida. Shenyun regresa a Ciudad de México del 1 al 4 de mayo. Boletos en shenyun.com/MX.
Many people might ask or have this question about why would the administration brief faith leaders. Why did they choose this particular faith group?
Well, that's a great question. So, faith leaders are the grassroots and the heartbeat of America. We, as faith leaders, if you have a church or you don't have a church, maybe you have a home group, people come to hear us either speak, teach, and educate on the biblical issues or whatever it may be, but also mold communities, help mold minds. So it's important that the leadership of the faith office and they understand it. Pastors, and I'll just talk about pastors in the Christian faith, we, like in my church, and I can talk about my church because it's my church. So we have several hundred people that go to our church. They range from students, college students, high school students, to business owners, entrepreneurs, people that work in plants, people that are mailmen, people that are police officers. So all walks of life, people that work in the hospitals and that are Americans that are working the everyday life. And there's so much stuff out there on TV that's just not accurate, misinformation. So the importance is to be able to get these leaders that are trusted leaders, pastors, ministers, men and women of faith, to come in to receive this information and get it out to the people. I'll give you an example, the immigration issue that's gone on, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of misinformation is spread. And so it's important for faith leaders, Christian faith leaders, pastors and them, to come together and say, okay, how are we going to get the word out, especially in the Latino community, because our community got hit hard when ICE started doing raids across America. So it was important for pastors to be educated, to teach their congregation on what's actually going on versus listening to other media outlets that are misleading and lying and creating fear to people.
What were those lies and misinformation that were most impacting the Hispanic community in your church? Can you give us examples?
Oh man, that ICE was going to raid our churches, ICE was going to raid our schools, ICE was going to come and pick up everybody that didn't have papers, everything that you could think of. What was really upsetting for me, I live in the Houston area, is that the Democrat Party decided to start hosting these education forums, right? You're talking about Congress women in my community and state senators and council members, and they were handing out these cards and telling people not to speak to the police. Now, I understand we all have rights, but to tell people to not talk to the authority when you're in leadership is failure from the get-go, right? We all know where that can lead when you don't want to speak to police officers. They're trying to do their job, and we're here to respect the law, not cause conflict. And to me, the Democratic Party, when they started doing that, deliberately started attacking law enforcement again. So we went from defunding police officers to now teaching people, immigrants, people that don't know our law, to say, don't talk to law enforcement. Now, why would you do that? It just creates division, right? And so that was something that really bothered me during that process. But mainly, the fears was that they were going to come and raid our churches, and they were going to raid our schools and arrest everybody.
After this briefing, where you were able to hear from the White House officials and get the actual information of what really was happening with ICE and with the police, tell us how did you go back to your community and tell the people what really was happening with the raids and tell the truth about what was happening? How did they react? Is there now a shift on the behavior of how they were feeling?
Oh, absolutely. So when ICE first started doing all the raids, within a few days, I was already messaging the Faith Department and saying, hey guys, we need to get ahead of this. What's going on? Because I was lost for words, right? I didn't realize the rollout was going to be like that. But I understood what President Trump was going to, he told us what he was going to do. And so, we got our briefings, we did all of that, but we needed to be able to do a national call, to be able to get faith leaders, ministers, and community leaders on a call, to be able to educate and to get the proper messaging out, right? And what protocols are we putting into place at our church? As a national faith leader, it's important for me to be able to share the information on how I'm maneuvering, and people can tweak it from there, right? However customized for their church. The faith office responded quickly. It was very important to them, and it was good to be able to have them give us the information that we needed, so we were able to have successful meetings and get the messaging out to pastors. We were able to get it in English and Spanish. We were able to put protocols out for churches, and then also messaging. To be able to kill the myths, the lies, and to be able to say, hey, this is truth. One of the things that we advised all the pastors was to go and read the executive order, and then what's actually taking place, right? So we know that they weren't coming into churches and they weren't raiding churches and schools. And I know the media was trying to stir up stuff and say they were, but that just was a lie. And it brought a lot of fear to people. Latino churches was down 50%, some 60, 70%. The fear was remarkable, and so it was very important for us to be able to get a hold of that and be able to build up our faith leaders and say, hey, you have to be the messenger. You have to be able to get out there and knock down these lies. Because whether you know it or not, your people are going home. They're watching Telemundo, Univision, and they're getting the misinformation, and that's creating fear, and that's just not good.
And from this was the first step of reaching to the White House and getting open doors about the realities that the Hispanic community and the fear that they were feeling in that moment. Is there any particular initiative or any particular policy that you are working along with Pastor Paula White and Jennifer Korn that you can share with us? Is there any future plans of things happening for the Hispanic community?
I hope so. They're working and they're doing a great job. So I know we got some great stuff coming down the pipeline. I think it's going to be impactful for the Latino community. Here soon, they're going to be hosting some stuff for Latino leaders and business owners and faith leaders again. And, Hispanic Heritage Month in September is going to be remarkable, as it always is. So there's going to be a lot of great things coming down.
Yeah, so they should watch out for the news.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep up with whitehouse.gov and Epoch Times. They're going to follow you so they can keep up with what's going on here at the White House.
Absolutely. And going back with the immigration topic, this still remains a very deeply personal issue for many Hispanics, as you have mentioned, especially in the faith community. Has the faith office discussed ways to approach any particular reform that can happen?
So that I don't know, but I can speak for myself, right? And I don't speak for the Faith Department or the White House or anybody like that, I'll be clear. We need immigration reform here in America. I'll be one of the first ones to tell you that. And I'm sure a lot of other individuals will say the same thing. I'm hoping we can get it done. I hope our elected officials are working on that. I'm being told that they are. But it needs to change. Here's the thing, the Biden administration has allowed millions and millions, 15 million people to come across the borders, and we don't know who's here. You and I have to carry a driver's license. I mean, when I flew in today, I had to show my driver's license multiple times. Some people might have to show a passport, but you can't go through the airport without an ID. But yet we allow all these individuals come through into our country through an app, and we don't know who they are. And that's very scary. So when you allow these people to get better privileges than people that have been here 20, 30 years and have proven themselves, have worked hard, that have paid their taxes, that have worked in our communities, that have gone to schools, those people should have a ticket to the front. They should be given an opportunity to get to citizenship a whole lot quicker than all these other individuals that are getting these passes and all this extra money. I think it was very wrong. I think there's a large population of immigrants that came over in DACA and everything else, that they should be first privileged in anything. And I feel like they got mistreated in the last few years because they did everything right. And if they did the right thing, why not reward them? That's just my thing.
Do you think there will be a change on that during these 4 years?
I hope so. I really do. I really hope that our Congress and Senate can draft up do I think an immigration bill it's never going to be perfect, but I think we can do better than what we have.
What's missing right now
in the immigration policies? Yes. Well, I'll give you an example. I had a friend of mine. I'll give you a few examples. A friend of mine, great guy, is here working, doing everything he's supposed to do. Forgot to file his paperwork. Okay, just got caught up in the day-to-day life. He was leaving work. He was actually working McDonald's at the time. Got pulled over for a taillight, and then he gets deported and banned for 10 years. I think that's unnecessary. There was an incident with another individual who actually applied for grants through Catholic Charities, and they were supposed to be filling out his paperwork, and they didn't file the paperwork on time. Again, got pulled over on the way home from work and came up on deportation flag because of the paperwork issue. There's a lot of things of that needs to change, right? The process. If you're here living in our country, you filed all the paperwork, you're going to school, it shouldn't take you 30 years to be able to be a citizen. Like we gotta do better to be able to allow these people to get to the courts and take their test and become a citizen.
And Pastor Vega, if you had 1 minute with President Trump tomorrow, just the two of you, what would you say to him on behalf of Hispanic Christians?
I would tell him thank you very much for allowing us to be able to have a voice and to be able to not just give ideas, but hopefully implement them nationally. And I would thank him for opening up the doors and allowing hundreds of Latino faith leaders to come to the White House to worship and to be able to be a voice. It allows me to jump inside, and just as a Christian national faith leader, but also as a Latino, because we hear the rumors that we're not there and we're never allowed to be there and we're not in the room. That's a lie. I'm there and I'm in the room. And then of course you hear, it's just you. No, it's not just me. And yes, you don't discredit just the one Latino or Latina in the room, right? That individual worked hard to get where they're at. And we need to champion those individuals, and we need to cheer them on and be excited for them because they worked hard and they're able to get in the room. So I'll say thank you, President Trump, for allowing us to be able to be a voice. And yes, we got 46% of the votes for the Latino population, and we're going to grow that number. And we're going to continue to fight for this country.
¿Y usted qué opina que más líderes hispanos estén participando en la política nacional? Déjeme sus comentarios debajo y sigamos la conversación. Yo soy Pachi Valencia y gracias por acompañarnos en esta entrevista. Y si aún no se ha suscrito a este canal, hágalo ahora y no olvide activar las notificaciones para estar siempre informado sobre lo que sucede en Washington y cómo afecta a nuestra comunidad hispana. Recuerde seguir a Desde el Capitolio en todas las redes sociales y no olvide darle me gusta a este video para que más gente pueda seguir viendo nuestro contenido. Yo soy Pachi Valencia y nos vemos mañana con más información desde el Capitolio. Buenas noches.